Good morning, everybody. I am Poé George from Scandurra Studio, and I firstly would like to thank everybody for being here and the organizers for having invited us. Today, I will speak about cross-generation architecture. Anytime we tear down a building too soon, it's a failure. It's a failure since the design stage, because it means that the building lost its touch with the context and with the people living there. When we design as Scandurra Studio, we try to think about next generation. And we do that through a sensitive architecture in touch with the context and with the reality. Our approach is based on three main pillars: durability, evolution, and beauty. We see durability as an act of sustainability because, of course, you have all these important mainstream meanings about sustainability, and I mean low emission, recycling, energy saving, that are really important, but they are not enough if the building doesn't last. A non-durable building is not sustainable socially because people don't recognize themselves anymore with the places, so there is a lack of identity. And it's not sustainable environmentally because there is no time to reabsorb all the emission needed for its construction. And it's not sustainable economically because if you put money to build something that you tear down right away, it makes no sense. But a building, to be durable, it must evolve. Evolution not only in time, but also as a constant search for innovation that we try to bring in our project. And that's why we are always surrounding ourselves with multiple consultants in order to have a multidisciplinary approach and multiply the point of views so we can better tune our intervention with the context. So design becomes a sort of sensitive tool, attuned to reality and the context, which for us is the essence of beauty. Beauty is the search for an identity related with places and the context. It's not something to contemplate, rather it's an attitude. It's trying through design to relate people and places. It's not a finished form, but it's the moment just before it. It's not the stage, it's the backstage that allows the scene to exist. If it was a finished form, it wouldn't be permanent because it would be tied to that very moment. On the other hand, if it's a constant search for an identity, it adapts and evolves with the needs of the epochs and the next generations. For obvious reasons, most of our projects are Italians, but I think that the themes that we are talking about today are perfectly fitting also for Lithuania, especially when we talk about urban regeneration and building refurbishment. All these ideas are not coming and rising from nothing, but they are coming from the cities we are living in. So we are living in hundreds or thousand years old cities, and we still live there because these cities were able to evolve and adapt to the needs of the different epochs. This, for example, wasn't a square at the beginning, but it was a Roman amphitheater in Lucca. And then the housing replaced the structure, and the stage replaced, and the square replaced the stage. So we are still using this structure. And we can still admire the magnificence of Samarkand because they covered the facade with very strong resistant ceramic material. And the same idea is present in classical and Renaissance buildings with very strong materials, and also they added this concept of assembly finished elements. In this project of ours, in Via della Spiga, a very famous fashion street in Milan, the facade is an assembly of very strong ceramic elements and prefab concrete elements. And I think this project is very interesting because it shows our approach very selective and analytic to the problems. Because actually the building has two main facades. The first one, facing Via della Spiga, is the one we transformed the most. We widened up the windows to increase the natural light coming in and to increase the quality of the working spaces. And we lowered down the mezzanine floor in order to relate the commercial spaces with the street. But on the other side, the facade is facing Via Senato and Via Marina, which is a neoclassical green boulevard leading to a public park. So we thought that this facade, neoclassical facade, was perfectly fitting with the context. So we really touched little things and we kept almost as it was. The same approach we do in product design. This is a lamp we designed called Roma, and also is an assembly of very strong materials that can be reassembled. It's steel, glass, and marble that can be reassembled depending on the needs. So this lamp can be a freestanding lamp, a ceiling lamp, a wall lamp. And in this case, we used this lamp to generate a monumental facade in a 1920s building we renovated in Rome. This building is protected, but during the last 100 years, somehow it was transformed a lot of times and lost its original coherency and hierarchy. So we wanted to bring a new coherence to the building. So the first thing we did was to try to relate the building with the city, and we worked on a lobby that it wasn't a connecting element between the different levels of the cities, because the building is standing on a slope. So through the lobby, you can reach the different level of the city. And so it becomes a sort of semi-public space where people working there could meet and recognize themselves with the city. The second intervention was to multiply the facades of the building. So we worked on the inner courtyard, widening up the windows to increase the flexibility of the floor plan, because the building is very deep. So this is the lobby. And this is the internal courtyard, as it was and as it is. But this flexibility is not only on the floor plan, but on the entire building. So this building can be monotenant, pluritenant, split in different business units, both vertically and horizontally. And we did that, we achieved that with a very precise work on the vertical connections. This is the situation as it was, and this is what we did. We kept some existing vertical connection, we added some new, and we concentrated there all the technical needs in order to have a big open space. And the position of the vertical connection was defined not only according to the existing structure, but also to create a new modularity on the ceilings and the floors. So with removable walls, we could have different configuration of the space, so open spaces, single offices, meeting room, etc. That project was in Rome, and in Rome we have a really good example of evolving architecture. This is Teatrus Marcellus, and this is an ancient Roman theater built during the Augustus period. And then during the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, new volumes were added, and it became housing and then a fortress. And in the Baroque period, it became a noble palace, Palazzo Orsini. And then in the last decades, it came back to its original cultural function. So when we design, we should take in account the possibility to transform the building and to adapt them to the further needs. In this case, this is a housing project. We wanted to reach a high level of flexibility of the apartments despite building regulations. So what we did was to split the apartment in vertical bands, not divided by walls, but by equipped walls. So to change the space, it was we just needed to change the equipments of the equipped walls, and we could transform the space itself with very little effort. And these three vertical bands are connected with two outdoor spaces, one in the north here and one in the south. The north part is a balcony, and it's connected and seen as an extension of the kitchen, because we realized that in Italy a lot of people actually are using the balconies to put their washing machines or fridges to save space inside the apartment. So we took that as an opportunity, and we created some furniture, outside furniture, that is actually giving a rhythm to the facade. And it's an equipped furniture, so if you want, you can put there washing machines or fridges without ruining the facades and having flexibility inside. On the south part, we have these very deep terraces. So we keep the privacy from outside, but at the same time we keep the relation between the inside and the outside. So it's almost an external or outdoor room. Also, there is very flexibility to increase or having less dimension of the apartments, so you could add the vertical strips to another apartment, and so changing the dimension. This is the facade. And this is another project. We applied the same concept, but to the external rooms, actually we added a shelter. So it's a non-conditioned room, of course, it's exterior space, but you could close it depending on the season, on the climate situation, and on the needs of the users. This is the north facade, and it's very different because this is facing north, so we were worried about not having enough natural light. So we shrinked the walls in order to capture the light coming from east and from west. All this work about creating hybrid and flexible living models, it's the heart of our work with it, and that ended up on a book written by Alessandro Scandurra, our founder, and Giordana Ferri, the president of Social Housing Foundation. And there we made several proposals for flexible new living models. And what we discovered doing the research and studying the past experiences too, is that the most flexible spaces were the ones made by an assembly of finished elements that could be reorganized and transform the spaces you were living in. Of course, this idea of assembly of finished elements, it's also available for building scale. Buckminster Fuller pushed it really forward, but this search of lightness and flexibility, especially lightness, which somehow is sustainable because it allows you to save material, always had been present in history of architecture. But with Industrial Revolution, it reached really high levels because of new technologies and new construction systems. Very good example is the Crystal Palace that was built for Universal Exhibition in 1851. And here the lightness leading to flexibility is very clear, and you can reach very flexible spaces that you could rearrange depending on the needs of the exhibition. 10 years ago, we won a competition for the informative pavilion for Expo 2015 in Milan. And you will see here the concept of lightness, flexibility, importance of the structure is central. But instead of focusing on the design of the building, we focused on the design of the square plus to pavilion, because we wanted to enlarge the flexibility to the public space and to the outdoor spaces. So this is the building. It's an assembly of metal portals that are somehow working as a backstage for the outdoor event. So to the structure, you could hang lighting, projectors, screens, and speakers, and organize the event depending on the needs. And also, the building envelope is suspended to these metal portals, so you could have very open and flexible and free space inside to reorganize it depending on the needs. So this diagram shows how you could change the use of the space depending on the hours and the events that were taking place. So some different use of the spaces. And this idea of assembly of finished elements is also present at the urban scale, because the project was taking place in a promenade leading from the cathedral, Piazza Duomo, to the castle, and it's a series of monumental architecture. So we wanted to add our monumental architecture. That's why we proposed the gate, because it's inspired by the toll gates, twin toll gates. They are surrounding the city of Milan. And somehow symbolizing the door opening to the world for Expo 2015. This project, of course, is not ours. This is Vigevano. It's a small town near Milan. And when they had to renovate the church during the Baroque period, they had these problems of creating a unity between the two different axes between the church and the Renaissance square. So instead of demolishing everything, they worked on the facade and they tilted, orienting it to the square in order to create this new unity between the square and the church. And the facade works as a sort of filter between the two axes. So it's a very precise gesture that resolve this problem. In our proposal for Vigorelli Velodrome, instead of focusing ourselves on the renovation of the velodrome, we focused on the urban spaces. So we proposed a covered roof to activate the public spaces, to extend the events that were taking place inside the velodrome and bring them outside. And also it could be covered space for other events like concerts, markets, or just a shelter for sunny or rainy days. This idea of precise gesture and acupuncture intervention is also clear at the building scale. This is not our project, this is Pritzker Prize Lacatone Vassal, but I think they did a really interesting intervention because they worked on an existing social housing building that was almost dead, and they created this three-dimensional facade, giving a new flexibility to the building and adding value to it. So with a very precise and attuned gesture, actually they gave a new life to a building that seemed to be dead. We used almost the same approach in this building. This is a Pietro Lingeri building. He is a very important architect from the Rationalist period in Italy. And of course, we didn't want to tear down the building because it was very beautiful. But the client thought that nevertheless the building was not coherent anymore with their needs. They wanted a more representative building. So instead of making an iconic building, we worked on the relation between the building and the city. So we created this sort of semi-public space connecting the lobby, which is here, with the street and the garden, to create a new relation, a new representative building. So this is the situation, and the client at the end was very happy. And this is what you see from the garden and the lobby. Similar approach is in this building. This was the former Vodafone headquarters. They left, and the new tenant needed a more united building. These are 3 blocks, and they thought it was not okay for them. But instead of demolishing everything and creating a single building, we proposed to realize this covered path to connect all the buildings together, to reorganize all the flows and create a new unity with a very little effort and very little energy consumption. These are some pictures. And I would like to finish by opening up the doors of our home. This is our office, so welcome. And here we applied the same ideas. So we concentrated all the technical part in the center and left a really open and flexible space there, because we are not using this space only as an office. Of course, we work there sometimes, but we organize conferences, events, formation events, parties. So we need this space to be flexible. And so we designed it with the removable and dismountable elements that could be rearranged depending on the needs of the events. And the same philosophy is present also for the systems. For the air conditioning, for example, is self-adapting depending on the event that is taking place, the temperature and the number of people there. The lighting that we designed also is taking into account these elements and is self-adapting depending on the needs. So I would like to finish. This is a very short selection of our most important project for urban regeneration and building renovations. You will see at the end, also we have 2 projects here in Lithuania, 2 proposals. One in Kaunas for a 30 hectares area we just presented, and 1 project in Vilnius for a school. Thank you.